She was 13 years old, a virgin, a princess of the greatest empire on earth, and tonight her own father, the man who called himself King of Kings, Light of the Aryans, chosen by Ahura Mazda himself, would summon her not as a daughter, but as a concubine. What Xerxes did in the shadows of Persepolis wasn't just a crime. It was a system, a theology, a dynasty built on the broken bodies of his own children. This is that story. The girl's name was Amestris the Younger, not the famous queen the other one, the forgotten one. History has a way of erasing the inconvenient. She stands now in a chamber carved from limestone and cedar walls, painted with images of winged bulls and divine fire. Outside, the empire stretches from the Aegean to the Indus. Inside, a 13-year-old girl is being dressed like a bride for a wedding that will never be named. Her mother, Statera, kneels beside her. She does not cry. Crying ended years ago. Instead, she braids her daughter's hair with the mechanical precision of someone performing a burial rite. Gold thread, jasmine oil, rouge made from crushed insects painted onto cheeks still soft with childhood. "Will it hurt?" Amestris whispers. Statira's hands pause, for just a moment, then continue braiding. "You will survive it," she says. "We all do." Not an answer. A prophecy. The eunuch arrives at the door. His face is smooth, ageless, empty of sympathy. He has seen this ritual 100 times. He will see it 100 more. The King of Kings summons his daughter. 5 words. They land like an executioner's blade. Amestris turns to her mother one last time. Statira grips her hands tight, desperate, then releases them. Because what choice does she have? You cannot fight a god. You cannot refuse a king. And in Persia, those 2 titles are the same. The corridors of Persepolis stretch endlessly. Torches flicker against walls carved with images of Xerxes receiving tribute from conquered nations. Here, a Lydian king bows. There, an Egyptian general offers gold. Everywhere, the message is clear. All the world kneels before Persia. But what the carvings don't show are the bodies the empire stands on. Amestris walks. Each step echoes. She counts them. 37, 38, 39. Counting is the only thing that keeps her mind from fracturing. The eunuch glances back once. "You should feel honored," he says. "Many girls never see the king's chamber." She wants to scream. Instead, she nods. This is what power does, a voice whispers in her mind. It makes the unbearable sound like privilege. They reach the doors. Carved cedar, 20 feet tall. The guards don't look at her. They've learned not to see. Inside the chamber smells of myrrh and wine. Silk curtains partition the room into shadows within shadows. And there, reclining on a couch of purple cushions, is Xerxes. He is 47 years old, still broad-shouldered, still crowned, still draped in the gold thread robes that mark him as chosen by heaven. He looks at his daughter the way a man looks at a newly acquired horse. "Come here, Amestris." Her feet move. She does not command them. They simply obey, as all things obey kings. He gestures to the cushions beside him. She sits. He pours wine into a cup Phoenician glass worth more than a village and offers it to her. "Drink. It will help." She drinks. The wine burns. Her throat closes. She drinks again. Xerxes leans back, studying her. "You look like your grandmother," he says. "Atossa, the most beautiful woman in Persia." A compliment, delivered like a sentence. "Do you know why I summoned you?" he asks. She shakes her head. She knows. But the script requires her to pretend. "Because you are mine," he says simply. "Everything in this empire is mine. The gold in the treasury, the soldiers in the field, the daughters in my harem. All of it mine." He reaches out. His hand cups her face. His thumb traces her jawline. "Your mother was mine. Your sisters are mine. And tonight, you become mine in the way a king claims what is his." This is the moment. The moment when something inside a child breaks and never fully heals. But here's what history doesn't tell you. This wasn't lust. It was theology. Yes, 3 years earlier. The priests of Ahura Mazda gather in the fire temple at Pasargadae. They are the keepers of sacred knowledge, the interpreters of divine will. And they have a problem. King Xerxes has just returned from Greece. Defeated, humiliated, 300 Spartans held him at Thermopylae. The Athenian fleet shattered his armada at Salamis. He came home not as a conqueror, but as a failure. A failed king is a dangerous king. The empire whispers. Rebellions simmer in Egypt and Babylon. Satraps hoard grain and gold, preparing for the fracture. And in the palace, courtiers who once bowed too deeply now bow with hesitation. Xerxes needs to reassert control. Not just political control, cosmic control. The high priest Mardoniya bows before the throne. He is 70 years old, blind in one eye, and has advised 3 kings. He knows what Xerxes needs to hear. Great king, he begins, the gods are testing you, not punishing testing, because you are destined for something greater than conquest. Xerxes leans forward. Speak. Cyrus the Great built an empire. Darius expanded it. But you, my king, are called to purify it. Purify. Mardoniya nods slowly. The royal bloodline has been diluted. Your father married a Greek woman. Your brothers took wives from Bactria, from Media, from lands where the sacred fire does not burn pure. This is why the gods withheld victory at Salamis, not because you are weak, but because the blood of Achaemenes has been tainted. Xerxes stares, listening. The ancient texts, Mardoniya continues, teach that divinity must be concentrated, that the line of kings must remain unbroken, unmixed. The pharaohs of Egypt knew this. The gods of Olympus knew this, and now the gods whisper it to you. A long pause. What are you saying? Xerxes asks quietly. Mardoniya meets his gaze. I am saying that true kingship requires true purity, that your daughters carry within them the blood of Cyrus, that to preserve the divine essence of the Achaemenid line, a king must do what mortals cannot understand. Silence. Then, my daughters. Yes, my king. Another pause. Longer. The gods command this. The gods permit it. Because you are not a man, you are a king. And kings exist beyond the laws that bind lesser mortals. This is how it begins. Not with desire, with permission, not with passion, with doctrine. And once a man is told that his monstrosity is divinity, there is no limit to what he will do. Back in the chamber. Amistris the younger sits beside her father, the wine turning her limbs heavy. She wants to run. But where does a princess run in a palace built to contain her Xerxes stands? He moves to a table laden with scrolls, unfurls one. This, he says, is the royal genealogy. Every king, every queen, every child of the Achaemenid line. Do you see the pattern? She doesn't answer. He doesn't need her to. Cambyses married his sister. Darius married his niece. And their sons ruled the greatest empire in history. He turns. This is not a crime, Amestris. This is a sacrament. She tastes bile, swallows it. I don't understand, she whispers. You don't need to understand, Xerxes says gently, almost kindly. You only need to obey. He extends his hand. She takes it. And in that moment, that single terrible moment, the machinery of empire crushes another soul beneath its wheels. But here's the twist that no one talks about. Amistris the younger was not the first. She was the 7th. 7 daughters, all summoned, all silenced. The eldest Amytis bore a son 9 months later. The court pretended it was her husband's child, a minor general named Megabyzus. But everyone knew. The boy had Xerxes' eyes, his build, his walk. Megabyzus said nothing, because what does a general say when his king gives him a pregnant bride and calls it an honor? He raised the child, loved him even, but every time he looked at the boy he saw the king's face. and something in him curdled. The second daughter, Rhodagun, vanished entirely. No record, no tomb, just an absence where a person used to be. The third Statera, the younger. Yes, another Statera, Xerxes, named his daughters, like a man names his horses, was married off to the governor of Bactria, 3 months after her summons. Pregnant, terrified, 17 years old. The fourth died in childbirth. Palace records call it complications. They don't mention she was 14. The fifth, sixth, and now seventh Amestris form a trail of broken girls stretching across a decade of Xerxes' reign, and the empire calls it tradition. The morning after. Amestris wakes alone. The chamber is empty except for a single servant, an older woman with scars on her wrists. She does not speak. She simply brings water cloth and a small vial of poppy milk. "Drink," the woman whispers. "It helps with the pain." Amestris drinks. The world softens, but nothing inside her will ever be soft again. She is returned to the women's quarters. Her mother is there waiting. Statera pulls her daughter into her arms and holds her as she weeps. No words, just the sound of breaking. 3 days later, Xerxes summons her again, then again the following week, and again. Because once a system is built, it runs on its own. But here's the question no one asks. Why didn't anyone stop him? The priests justified it. The general stayed silent. The courtiers applauded. Even the mothers' women who had endured the same prepared their daughters and said nothing. Because this is what empires do. They normalize atrocity until it becomes ritual. They call violence order. They worship power until power becomes indistinguishable from divinity. And when enough people agree to look away, evil doesn't need to hide. It builds palaces. 6 months later. Amestris the younger is 14 now, and she is pregnant. The physicians confirm it. The court celebrates. Another royal child, another link in the divine chain. Xerxes is pleased. He arranges a marriage for her to General Artabanus, captain of his personal guard, a loyal man, a silent man. The wedding is magnificent. 10,000 guests, musicians from Babylon, dancers from India, and at the center of it all, a pregnant child in a golden veil standing beside a 40-year-old warrior who knows exactly what he is being asked to do. Raise the king's child. Call it his own. Never speak the truth. Artabanus bows before Xerxes and swears eternal loyalty. But something in his eyes has changed. Remember this name, because 5 years from now, Artabanus will drive a knife into Xerxes' chest while he sleeps. And when the King of Kings dies choking on his own blood, his final words will be, "Why?" Artabanus will lean close and whisper, "For my wife, for her childhood, for every daughter you called yours." Then he'll twist the blade. But that night is still years away. Tonight, Amestris lies in a marriage bed feeling the child inside her kick, a child fathered by her own father, a child the empire will call legitimate. She places her hand on her belly and whispers a promise, "When you are born, I will love you. Even though you are proof of his sin, even though looking at you will break me, I will love you, because you are innocent." And someone has to remember what innocence looked like before they took it from us. Outside, the empire sleeps. The monuments stand. The gods, if they exist, say nothing. And somewhere in the palace, Xerxes pours himself more wine, satisfied that he has done his divine duty. Because monsters never think they are monsters. They think they are kings. The child is born on a winter morning when frost covers the steps of Persepolis like a warning from forgotten gods. Amestris screams for 11 hours. The midwives whisper prayers she cannot hear. Artabanus stands outside the chamber, his hand resting on the pommel of his sword, listening to his wife's agony and knowing he is powerless to end it. When the baby finally comes, it is a boy. Perfect, healthy, screaming with the lungs of a future warrior. The head midwife wraps him in purple silk and places him in Artabanus's arms. "Congratulations, General," You have a son. The lie is so smooth it sounds like truth. Artabanus looks down at the infant. Dark eyes, strong jaw, already unmistakably the face of Xerxes staring back at him. He should feel rage. Instead, he feels something worse. Pity. Because this child will grow up never knowing the truth, never knowing his grandfather is his father, never knowing his mother's love is stitched together from grief. Inside the chamber, Amestris reaches out. Let me hold him. They place the child on her chest. She stares at him, this impossible thing, this living contradiction. She expects to feel revulsion. Instead, tears come. I'm sorry, she whispers to the baby. I'm sorry for what you are. I'm sorry for what you'll never know. Artabanus enters, kneels beside the bed, takes her hand. We will raise him well, he says quietly. He will never know. Amestris looks at her husband. This good man, this man who married her knowing she carried another man's child. This man who is choosing every single day to live inside a lie. Do you hate me? She asks. Artabanus squeezes her hand. I hate him, never you. It is the gentlest thing anyone has said to her in months. But here's what she doesn't know. That same night, while she sleeps with her newborn son, Artabanus walks to the barracks and summons 3 men, his most trusted soldiers, men who have bled beside him in Media and Bactria and the burning hills of Anatolia. They gather in the shadow of the armory. I need to know, Artabanus says, voice low, if you would follow me. Not the king. Me. The men exchange glances. The eldest, a scarred Persian named Aspamytris, steps forward. We already do, General. Artabanus looks at each of them. What I'm asking is treason. Aspamytris smiles coldly. What he's doing to his daughters is worse than treason. It's desecration. Another soldier, younger, leans in. My sister was taken to the harem last year. She was 16. She hanged herself 3 months later. His voice cracks. So yes, General, if you're asking what I think you're asking, I'm with you. The third man simply nods. Artabanus exhales slowly. Not yet. We wait. We plan. And when the moment comes, we strike clean. How long? Aspamytris asks. Years if necessary, because we only get one chance. And if we fail, our families burn. They clasp forearms, a pact sealed in shadow. But empires have ears everywhere. 3 weeks later, the youngest soldier disappears. His body is found in the Xerxes River, throat cut, tongue removed. The message is clear. Someone knows, and someone is watching. 2 years pass. Amestris' son, named Ariomandes, peaceful warrior. A name chosen by Artabanus, with bitter irony, learns to walk, to speak, to laugh. He is a bright child, curious, beloved by the servants who know the truth and lie to protect him. Amestris watches him play in the gardens and feels her heart split in two. She loves him, fiercely, desperately. But every time he smiles, she sees Xerxes' smile. Every time he runs, she sees Xerxes' stride. Her younger sister, Darius's daughter, Artazostre, visits one afternoon. She is 12. Still a child. Still safe. They sit beneath a pomegranate tree while Ariomandes chases butterflies. Do you ever wish you could leave? Artazostre asks suddenly. Amestris looks at her sister. Every day. Where would you go? Anywhere. Greece, India, the edge of the world. Amestris plucks a pomegranate from the branch, splits it open. The seeds bleed red across her palms. But there is no edge. The empire is everywhere. Artazostre is quiet for a long moment. Then, he's been looking at me. Amestris' blood turns to ice. What? Father. The way he looks at me during banquets. The way he... Her voice breaks. I'm 12, Amestris. I'm 12 and I'm terrified. Amestris grabs her sister's hands. The pomegranate seeds stain them both. Listen to me, she says urgently. When the summons comes, and it will come, you survive it. You hear me. You go somewhere else in your mind. You let your body stay, but you take your soul, and you hide it where he can never reach. Artazostra's eyes fill with tears. Did that work for you? Amestris hesitates, then tells the truth. No, but maybe it will work for you. They hold each other while Ariomandes plays innocent and doomed beneath the bleeding fruit trees. That night, Artazostre goes to her mother, Queen Statera, and begs her to intervene. Statera listens, then does something she has not done in 15 years. She goes to Xerxes. The king is in his private study, reviewing reports from the satrapies. Rebellions in Egypt, grain shortages in Babylon. The empire is fracturing and he is trying to hold it together with scrolls and decrees. Statera enters without announcement. The guards let her pass. Even after everything, she is still the queen. Xerxes looks up. Statera, it's late. I need to speak with you about Artazostre. His expression doesn't change. What about her? Statera's hands tremble. She clasps them behind her back. She is 12 years old. I'm aware. She is our daughter. Also aware. Statera steps closer. Her voice drops. Xerxes, please, not her. She's still a child. She still believes the world is good. Xerxes sets down his scroll, leans back, studies his wife with the detached curiosity of a man observing an insect. What are you asking me? I'm asking you to spare her, to let her grow up, to marry her to a nobleman, a governor, anyone. Just let her be a child for a few more years. A long silence. Then Xerxes stands, walks to the window overlooking Persepolis. The city glitters with torches, 50,000 souls, all existing within the architecture of his will. Do you know what holds an empire together, Statera? She doesn't answer. Fear, he continues. Not love, not loyalty. Fear. Fear that if you disobey, you disappear. Fear that if you question, you burn. And do you know what creates that fear? Power. No, he turns. The willingness to do what others will not. To cross lines they cannot imagine crossing. That's what separates kings from pretenders. He walks toward her. When I take my daughters, I am not indulging desire. I am demonstrating dominion. I am showing every satrap, every general, every scheming priest that there is nothing I will not claim. Statera stares at him. This man she married. This man she once loved. You're insane, she whispers. Xerxes smiles. Not cruelly, almost sadly. No, I'm a king, and one day you'll understand the difference. He returns to his desk. The conversation is over. Statera walks out. Down the corridors, past the guards, into her private chamber, and for the first time in 15 years, she weeps. Not quietly, not delicately. She weeps the way a woman weeps when she realizes she is complicit in the destruction of her own children. But here's the thing about queens in cages. Sometimes they find keys. Statera begins to write letters, coded, careful, sent through trusted servants to trusted allies. To the satrap of Bactria, the king's mind is unwell, the empire suffers. To the governor of Egypt, rebellion is not treason when the throne is defiled. To General Megabyzus, her son-in-law, the man married to Amatus, you have endured what no man should endure. Will you endure forever? The letters circulate. Whispers grow. And in the fire temples, priests who once sanctified Xerxes' actions begin to quietly change their sermons. A king who violates the sacred laws of family. One priest murmurs to his congregation, is no longer a king. He is a demon wearing a crown. The words spread like fire. Xerxes hears the whispers, orders investigations. 3 priests are arrested. 2 recant. One, an old man named Hormizd, refuses. They bring him before Xerxes in chains. You called me a demon, Xerxes says. Hormized, 70 years old, looks the king in the eye. I called you what you are. And what is that? A man who mistook power for divinity. A man who thought that because he could do anything, he should do everything. Hormizd spits at Xerxes' feet. Cyrus built this empire on mercy. You're destroying it with cruelty. Xerxes signals the guards. Take him to the scaffold, slowly. As Hormizd is dragged away, he shouts, You can kill me, but you cannot kill the truth. The gods see, your daughters remember. And one day, King of Kings, you will answer for what you've done. His execution lasts 3 days. The empire watches, and something shifts. 6 months later, the summons comes. Artaxerxes, now 13, is called to her father's chamber. Amestris hears the news and runs through the palace. She reaches her sister's room just as the eunuch arrives. No, Amestris says. Not her. The eunuch's face is stone. The king commands. I'll go instead. Tell him I'll come. Tell him. The king does not negotiate. Artaxerxes stands. She is dressed in white. She has not cried. Her face is blank, resigned, already gone. Amestris grabs her. Fight. Scream. Run. Artaxerxes looks at her sister with eyes that have aged decades in seconds. Where would I run? The eunuch takes her arm, gently as a man leading a lamb to slaughter. Amestris watches her sister disappear down the corridor. Then she does something she has never done before. She goes to Artaxerxes, finds him in the barracks, pulls him into a storage room, and says 3 words, Kill him, now. Artaxerxes looks at his wife. This woman he has watched break piece by piece. This woman whose childhood was stolen, whose body was defiled, whose son will never know the truth of his birth. I've been planning it for 2 years, he says quietly. Then do it. If I act now, we all die. Your sisters, your son, your mother, everyone. Amestris' hands shake. Then what do we do? Artaxerxes pulls her close. We wait. 1 more year. I've been recruiting. Soldiers who've lost daughters, fathers who've lost sons to Xerxes' wars, men who are loyal not to the crown, but to the idea that some lines should never be crossed. He pulls back, looks into her eyes. 1 year, and then I will end him. I swear it. Amestris closes her eyes, breathes. 1 year, she repeats. 1 year. But empires don't wait for oaths. That night, while Artaxerxes endures her father's summons, while Statera weeps in her chamber, while Amestris holds her son and whispers lies about safety, something else is happening in the palace. An informant, one of the king's spies, has been listening. He has heard Artaxerxes' conversations. He has read Statera's letters. He has compiled a list of names. And now he walks through the corridors toward Xerxes' study, carrying a scroll that will change everything. Because conspiracies only survive in darkness, and someone just lit a torch. The truth is, revolutions don't start with armies. They start with fathers who can't save their daughters. And those fathers eventually become the most dangerous men alive. The spy's name is Bagapates. He has served 3 kings. He has survived 2 palace coups. And he knows that loyalty to a dying regime is suicide. So he makes a choice. He walks past Xerxes' study, turns left instead of right, and goes to find Artaxerxes. He finds him in the armory sharpening a blade that hasn't needed sharpening in weeks. Men sharpen blades when they need to think, when they need their hands to do something while their minds plot murder. General, Bagapates says quietly. Artaxerxes doesn't look up. I don't have time for games, Bagapates. Then I'll be brief. There's an informant, one of the king's eunuchs. He's been watching you, listening. He knows about the letters, the meetings, the soldiers you've been recruiting. Bagapates steps closer. He's compiling a list, and tomorrow morning he's giving it to Xerxes. The blade stops moving. Artaxerxes looks up. Why are you telling me this? Bagapates pulls a small scroll from his robes, unfurls it. A list of names written in Persian script. Artabanus sees his own name at the top, then Aspamytris, then Statera, then 20 others. Because my daughter was 14 when the king summoned her, Bagapates says. His voice is steady, but his hands shake. She's 17 now. She doesn't speak anymore, doesn't eat unless forced, just stares at walls. He looks at Artabanus. So if you're planning what I think you're planning, do it tonight, because tomorrow everyone on this list dies. Artabanus takes the scroll, studies it. Who's the informant? Mithridates, the eunuch who serves the king's wine. Where is he now? In his quarters, alone. He'll deliver the list at dawn. Artabanus stands, tucks the blade into his belt. How do you know he's alone? Bagapates smiles grimly. Because I drugged his guard. For the first time in 2 years, Artabanus allows himself to hope. If I do this tonight, he says slowly, it will be chaos. The succession, the satraps, the empire will fracture. The empire is already fractured, Bagapates replies. You'll just be making it official. Artabanus grips his shoulder. Get your daughter out of the palace. Take her to your brother's estate in Media. Leave tonight. What about you? I have a king to kill. Bagapates clasps his forearm. 2 fathers, 2 daughters, 1 shared hatred. Then he's gone. Artabanus walks quickly through the corridors, finds Aspamytris in the barracks. It's tonight, Artabanus says. Aspamytris doesn't ask questions, just nods. How many men? 4. You, me, and 2 others we trust completely. Small team, silent entry. We go in during the 3rd watch when his personal guards rotate. The eunuch, I'll handle him first. You get the men ready. Meet me at the southeast gate in 1 hour. Aspamytris hesitates. General, if we fail, our families burn. If we do nothing, our daughters burn slower. Artabanus meets his eyes. I'd rather die trying than live watching. Aspamytris grips his sword hilt. Then let's make sure we don't fail. Son. Artabanus goes to Amestris. She's in the garden with Ariomandus. The boy is 3 now, building castles from stones. He looks up when Artabanus approaches. Papa, look. Artabanus kneels, examines the tiny structure. That's magnificent little warrior. Ariomandus beams. Amestris sees her husband's face, reads it instantly. What's happening? Not here. Artabanus stands. Ariomandus, go find your grandmother. Tell her you're hungry. The boy runs off, delighted by any excuse to visit the kitchens. The moment he's gone, Amestris grabs Artabanus's arm. Tell me. It's tonight. We move tonight. Her breath catches. Tonight. An informant discovered the plot. We either act now, or we die at dawn. He takes her hands. I need you to take Ariomandus to your mother's sister in Susa. Leave within the hour. Don't tell anyone. Just go. What about Artazostri? What about my other sisters? If this works, they'll be free. If it doesn't... He stops. If it doesn't, being far from the palace is the only thing that will save you. Amestris's eyes fill, not with fear, with something fiercer. How long have you been planning this? Since the day I married you. Since the day I held our son and saw his face and knew I couldn't let him grow up in a world where his grandfather was his father. She kisses him, hard, desperate. A kiss that tastes like goodbye. Come back to me, she whispers. I will, or I'll die trying. She pulls away, runs toward the palace to gather Ariomandus. Artabanus watches her go. Then he goes to kill the informant. Mithridates' quarters are in the eastern wing, a small chamber near the king's study, convenient for a man whose job is to whisper secrets. Artabanus picks the lock. Old skill from his days as a soldier. You learn to open doors when sieges require stealth. Inside, Mithridates is awake, sitting at a desk, writing. He looks up, sees Artabanus, reaches for a knife. Artabanus is faster, crosses the room in 3 strides, grabs Mithridates' wrist, twists. The knife clatters to the floor. The list, Artabanus says. Where is it? Mithridates' eyes are wild. You're too late. I already sent a copy to. Artabanus slams him against the wall. To who? Blood trickles from Mithridates' nose. To the king's scribe. It'll be on Xerxes' desk by morning. Artabanus feels his plan collapsing. If the king already knows, then Mithridates laughs, a high, desperate sound. You think killing me changes anything? You think you can murder a king and walk away? The empire will hunt you, your wife, your son. Everyone you've ever... Artabanus drives the blade up under his ribs. Clean, quick. Mithridates gasps, chokes, slides to the floor. My wife is already gone, Artabanus says quietly, and my son will grow up free, or not at all. He searches the room, finds the original list, burns it in the oil lamp. Then he hears footsteps. The door opens. A young guard stands there, sees Mithridates' body, sees Artabanus holding a bloody blade, reaches for his sword. Artabanus moves, not thinking, just reacting. 20 years of combat instinct taking over. The guard's sword is halfway out of its sheath when Artabanus' blade enters his throat. The guard falls, gurgling, dying. Artabanus stands over two bodies and realizes there's no going back now. He drags both corpses into the storage closet, locks it. It'll buy him maybe an hour before someone notices. 1 hour to kill a king. He meets Aspameters and 2 other soldiers at the southeast gate. Both men are young. Both have lost someone to Xerxes' appetites. The eunuch, Aspametris asks, dead, but he sent a copy of the list to the king's scribe. We have maybe an hour before it's discovered. One of the soldiers, a Bactrian named Takmaspada, spits. Then we move fast. They cross the palace grounds, avoid the main corridors, use servant passages. Artabanus has studied these routes for 2 years. Every guard rotation, every blind spot, every weakness in the security. They reach the king's private chambers. 2 guards stand outside. Elite immortals, men who have sworn to die for Xerxes. Artabanus steps forward. The king requests his captain. The guards know him, trust him. One nods and opens the door. The moment the door swings open, Aspametres moves, sword out, blade through the first guard's neck before he can shout. Takmaspada takes the second, hand over mouth, knife between ribs, silent. Efficient. Both guards fall. 4 men step over them and enter the king's chamber. Xerxes is not asleep. He's standing at the window looking out over Persepolis, a cup of wine in his hand. He's wearing a simple robe. No crown, no armor, just a man. He doesn't turn when they enter. I've been expecting you, he says quietly. Artabanus stops, blade ready. You knew. I've ruled for 20 years, Artabanus. I know when men stop fearing me. He takes a sip of wine, still doesn't turn. How many are with you, 2050? Enough. Xerxes finally turns, looks at the 4 men, looks at Artabanus. You're doing this for her, aren't you? For Amestris. For all of them. Every daughter you defiled, every mother you destroyed, every man you forced to swallow his rage and call it loyalty. Xerxes sets down the wine. And you think killing me will fix anything? The empire will tear itself apart. My sons will go to war. Thousands will die in the chaos. He steps closer. You're not a hero, Artabanus. You're just a man who couldn't protect his wife, so now you want to burn the world. Artabanus feels the words land, feels the truth in them. But he thinks of Amestris, 13 years old, trembling, being led to her father's bed. He thinks of Ariomandes, growing up believing a lie. He thinks of Artazostre, who still has years of this ahead of her. Maybe you're right, Artabanus says. Maybe I'm not a hero, but at least I'm not a monster. He drives the blade forward. Xerxes tries to dodge, too slow, too old. The blade enters his stomach, twists. The King of Kings gasps, falls to his knees. Artabanus kneels with him, looks him in the eye. This is for every daughter who died in silence, for every mother who couldn't save her child, for every father who had to watch and pretend it was divine right. Xerxes coughs blood. You'll regret this. No, Artabanus says. I'll regret that I didn't do it sooner. He pulls the blade across Xerxes' throat. The King of Kings dies choking on his own blood, collapsing onto the marble floor that cost 1,000 slaves their lives to build. Aspamitra stares. It's done. It's started, Artabanus corrects. Now we need to. The door bursts open. 6 guards, immortals. They see the king's body, see the blood, draw swords. Run, Artabanus shouts. Tacmaspada doesn't run. He charges. Takes 2 guards down before a spear enters his chest. He falls gurgling, clutching the wound. Aspamitres and the other soldier fight. Blades clashing. 3 against 6. Artabanus joins. Years of battle training taking over. He kills 1 guard. Wounds another. But they're outnumbered. An immortal's sword slashes across Aspamitra's leg. He falls. The guard raises his blade for the killing blow. Artabanus tackles him. They crash to the floor, wrestling, grunting. The guard's blade inches toward Artabanus's throat. Then the guard goes limp. The other soldier has driven a spear through his back. General, we have to go. They drag Aspamitres up. He can barely walk. Blood streams from his leg. They run. Down the corridor. Through the servant passages. Behind them, horns blare. The alarm. The whole palace waking. They reach the southeast gate. Guards are converging. Go! Aspamitres shouts. I'll hold them. No! Go! Get out of the city. Tell them what he did. Tell them why. Artabanus grabs his friend's face. You're a good man, Aspamitres. So are you. Now run. Artabanus and the soldier run. Behind them, Aspamitres plants himself at the gate. Wounded. Bleeding. 1 man against 12. He lasts 40 seconds. But 40 seconds is enough. Artabanus and the soldier escape the palace. Steal horses. Ride hard towards Susa. Behind them, Persepolis erupts. Xerxes is dead. The king is dead. And no one knows what comes next. In the women's quarters, Statera hears the commotion. Hears the horns. Hears the screaming. She runs to the window, sees guards flooding the courtyards, and she knows. She grabs Artazostre. We're leaving. Now. What's happening? Freedom. Maybe. Statera pulls her daughter through the corridors. Other women are emerging. Confused. Terrified. Hopeful. One of the older concubines, a woman who has been in the harem for 30 years, starts laughing. A wild, unhinged sound. He's dead. The monster is dead. The laughter spreads. Then crying. Then chaos. Statera and Artazostre reach the stables, steal a cart, drive toward the gates. Guards try to stop them. Statera doesn't slow down. The cart crashes through. Splinters flying. Horses screaming. They make it outside the palace walls. And for the first time in 15 years, Statera breathes free air. But freedom is expensive. By dawn, Xerxes' son, Artaxerxes, seizes the throne. He orders a purge. Every conspirator, every family member, every suspected traitor. Aspamitra's wife and children are executed. Publicly. Their bodies left in the square as a warning. Tacmaspada's entire village is burned, and Artaxerxes issues a decree, find Artabanus, alive. He wants to make an example. The reward is 10,000 gold derricks. Every bounty hunter, every mercenary, every desperate man in the empire starts searching. Artabanus rides through the night, reaches Susa at dawn, finds Amestris and Ariomandes hiding in a merchant's warehouse. She runs to him, sees the blood on his clothes, the exhaustion in his eyes. Is he dead? She asks. Yes. She closes her eyes, breathes. Good. We need to leave Persia, tonight. They'll come for us. Where do we go? Artabanus looks at his wife, his son. This family built on a foundation of lies and blood. Anywhere the empire isn't, he says. He But here's the thing about empires. They're everywhere, and they never forget. 3 weeks later, a bounty hunter tracks them to a village near the Caspian Sea. He arrives at night, brings 12 men. Artabanus hears them coming, wakes Amestris. Take Ariomandes, run north, don't stop. Not without you. Now! She grabs their son, runs into the darkness. Artabanus stands in the doorway, sword drawn, facing 12 men alone. He thinks of Amestris, 13 years old, trembling, betrayed by the man who should have protected her most. He thinks of all the daughters, all the mothers, all the silenced voices, and he decides if he's going to die, he'll die like a father should, fighting for his family. The bounty hunters charge. Artabanus meets them with a blade and a prayer. He kills 4 before they bring him down, because some men become monsters to serve power, but some men become martyrs to destroy it. Amestris hears the screaming behind her and knows her husband is dying. She runs anyway, because that's what he told her to do, because Ariomandes is clutching her hand and crying and asking where Papa is, and she can't stop to explain that Papa is buying their lives with his own. They crash through the forest, branches tearing at her clothes, her lungs burning, the boy stumbling. She picks him up, keeps running. Behind them, the clash of metal stops. Silence, then voices. Men laughing, men celebrating a kill worth 10,000 darics. Amestris runs until her legs give out, collapses behind a fallen tree, covers Ariomandes' mouth with her hand. He's sobbing silently into her palm. Shh, little warrior. Shh. Footsteps, torchlight flickering through the trees. The woman ran this way. Find her, the boy too. Triple the reward if we bring them both. Amestris looks at her son, 4 years old, innocent. He doesn't know his grandfather is his father, doesn't know his birth was a crime, doesn't know the empire wants him dead just for existing. She makes a choice. She pulls off her necklace, a simple bronze pendant Artabanus gave her on their wedding night, presses it into Ariomandes' palm. Listen to me, she whispers. You're going to run, that way, through the trees. Don't stop. Find the river. Follow it north until you see smoke. That's a village. Tell them your name is Darius. Just Darius. Nothing else. Can you do that? The boy's eyes are terrified. Mama, can you do that? He nods. Good boy. She kisses his forehead, tastes salt and tears. I love you. Your papa loved you. And one day, when you're older, you'll understand why we did what we did. I don't want to go alone. I know, but you have to. She turns him toward the darkness. Run. Don't look back, no matter what you hear. She pushes him. He runs. And Amestris stands, steps out from behind the tree, walks directly toward the torchlight. The bounty hunters see her, 5 of them, covered in Artabanus' blood. Well, one says, grinning, that was easy. Amestris doesn't run, doesn't beg, just stands there. Where's the boy? Another asks. She spits at his feet. Dead, drowned in the river trying to escape. The leader steps forward, studies her face. You're lying. Then go search. Waste your time. But I'm the king's daughter. I'm worth more than some bastard child anyway. He considers this. She's right. A royal daughter returned to Persepolis alive is worth more than a corpse in the woods. Bind her. They tie her wrists, rough rope that cuts into her skin. She doesn't flinch. As they lead her away, she glances back once, into the darkness where her son disappeared, and prays to God she's not sure exist, that he keeps running. Ariomandes runs until he can't breathe, falls, gets up, runs more. He finds the river, follows it north like his mother said. His feet are bleeding, his lungs screaming. But he runs because Mama told him to, and Papa always said you obey Mama no matter what. After what feels like hours, he sees smoke, collapses near a farmhouse. An old woman finds him at dawn, face down in the dirt, clutching a bronze pendant. She carries him inside, feeds him, asks his name. "Darius," he whispers. "Just Darius." She doesn't press. In these border regions, you learn not to ask too many questions. Too many refugees. Too many people running from something. The old woman named Roxana has lost her own children to war and plague. She sees this boy and decides the gods sent him to fill an empty house. She raises him. Never asks about the pendant he never removes. Never asks why he sometimes wakes screaming about bounty hunters and blood. Just loves him. Quietly. The way you love a broken thing you're trying to heal. Years pass. Ariomandes grows, strong, quiet, haunted. He learns farming, learns Persian and Greek from traveling merchants, learns to fight from an old soldier who lives in the village, and every night he holds the bronze pendant and tries to remember his mother's face. By the time he's 15, the memories are fading. He remembers running, remembers his mother pushing him into darkness, remembers the screaming. But the details blur. Roxana tells him he came to her alone, orphaned by bandits. He doesn't correct her, because the truth is buried somewhere he can't quite reach. But the pendant remains, his only proof that once someone loved him enough to die for him. Back in Persepolis, Amestris is brought before the new king. Artaxerxes sits on his father's throne, 23 years old, ambitious, paranoid. He's spent the last month executing conspirators and consolidating power. The throne room is packed. Nobles, priests, generals, all watching. Amestris is thrown at his feet, wrists still bound, covered in dirt and blood. Artaxerxes studies his half-sister. They share a father, different mothers. He's heard the rumors about what Xerxes did to his daughters. Everyone has. But acknowledging it would mean acknowledging the rot at the center of the dynasty. So instead he asks, "Where is Artabanus' son?" Amestris looks up, meets his eyes. "Dead." "You're certain?" "I watched him drown." A priest steps forward, old, bald, one of the men who justified Xerxes' crimes for decades. "She's lying, great king. A mother would never speak so coldly about her son's death." Artaxerxes considers this. "Search the northern territories, every village, every farm. If the boy lives, I want him found." Orders are dispatched. Soldiers fan out across the empire. But the empire is vast, and one boy is easy to lose. Artaxerxes turns back to Amestris. "You helped murder my father." "I helped end a monster," she replies. The throne room gasps. "You don't speak to a king like that. Not if you want to live." Artaxerxes' jaw tightens. "My father built this empire, conquered nations, ruled with strength." "Your father raped his daughters and called it divinity," Amestris says. Her voice is steady, clear, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He took me when I was 13. He took Artazostre when she was 12. He took Amitis when she was 16 and married her off pregnant to one of his generals. Enough." Artaxerxes stands, trembling, not with rage, with something worse, recognition, because he knows it's true. Everyone in this room knows it's true. They just never said it out loud. "You will be silent," Artaxerxes says quietly, "or I will cut out your tongue." Amestris smiles, bitter, broken. "Do it. I've been silent my whole life. Silence didn't save me. Silence didn't save my sisters. Maybe if someone had screamed sooner, he'd have stopped." The priest interrupts. "Great king, she is clearly mad with grief. I suggest you remember who else was silent," Amestris says, turning to the priest. "You, standing in your temple, justifying atrocity, telling him it was divine will. You're as guilty as he was." The priest's face goes white. Artaxerxes signals the guards. "Take her to the dungeons. No visitors. No trial. She rots there until I decide otherwise." As they drag her away, Amestris shouts one more thing. "You can imprison me, but you can't imprison the truth. Everyone in this room knows what he did. And pretending otherwise won't make it holy, it just makes you complicit. Her voice echoes through the throne room long after she's gone, and something shifts in the air. Because once a truth is spoken aloud, you can't unspeak it. Amestris spends 3 years in the dungeons beneath Persepolis. Stone walls, darkness, rats, food delivered once a day by guards who won't meet her eyes. She keeps count of days by scratching lines into the wall with a stone. 378 lines. Then she loses count. Other prisoners come and go. Political enemies, failed conspirators, men who bet on the wrong prince during succession wars. Amestris talks to none of them. Until one day a new prisoner arrives in the cell across from hers. A woman, young, maybe 19, crying. Amestris watches through the bars. "What did you do?" The girl looks up, eyes red. "I refused the king's summons." Amestris's blood goes cold. "Art Xerxes?" The girl nods. "He called me to his chamber. I said no, so he called it treason." She buries her face in her hands. "My father was a satrap, loyal, served 3 kings, but I refused, and now my whole family is arrested." Amestris crawls to the bars. "What's your name?" "Andia." "Listen to me, Andia. You did the right thing, the brave thing, the thing I wish I'd done when I was your age." Andia looks at her. "Who are you?" "Someone who learned too late that obedience isn't virtue. It's just cowardice with a prettier name." They talk through the bars, hours, days. Amestris tells her story. Not all of it, just enough. Andia listens, horrified. The king's own father did that. Kings do what they want, and everyone calls it divine right because it's easier than calling it rape. But you fought back. Eventually, after the damage was done, after I was already broken. Amestris grips the bars. That's the thing about injustice. It teaches you to accept it, slowly, until one day you wake up and realize you've been complicit in your own destruction. Andia is silent for a long moment. "Do you regret it?" Fighting back. Amestris thinks of Artabanus, dead in a village buying her time to save their son. She thinks of Ariomandes, running through darkness, hopefully alive, hopefully safe. She thinks of Aspamitris, Takmaspada, all the men who died so daughters could have a chance at freedom. "No," she says finally. "I regret that it took so long." 3 weeks later, Andia is released. Her father paid an enormous bribe. She's escorted out of the dungeon. Before she leaves, she stops at Amestris' cell. "I'll tell people what you told me. I'll make sure your story doesn't die here." Amestris smiles. That's all anyone can ask, to be remembered, to have their suffering mean something. Andia nods. Then she's gone, and Amestris is alone again. But Andia keeps her promise. She whispers the story to her sisters. They whisper it to their friends, who whisper it to their handmaids, who whisper it to merchants, who carry it across the empire. The story mutates, changes, grows. By the time it reaches Babylon, people are saying Xerxes had 50 daughters he defiled. By the time it reaches Egypt, they say he was cursed by the gods and that's why he died screaming. By the time it reaches Greece, Herodotus hears it and writes it down. Not accurately. He gets names wrong, timelines confused, but he writes, "It is said among the Persians that their king Xerxes lay with his own daughters, and that this sacrilege brought ruin upon his house." The story becomes legend. The legend becomes history. And in a dungeon beneath Persepolis, Amestris doesn't know that her voice spoken in darkness to a frightened girl will echo for 2,000 years. Year 4 of her imprisonment. A guard arrives at her cell, different from the usual ones, older. "You're being transferred," he says. "Where?" "The king's orders. You're being moved to house arrest, a villa outside the city." Amestris doesn't trust it. "Why?" The guard shrugs. "His mother asked for clemency, said you'd suffered enough." His mother. Statira, her mother, who escaped the night Xerxes died and has been living quietly in exile ever since. The guard unlocks the cell. "Can you walk?" Amestris tries. Her legs are weak, 4 years of darkness and stone. But she manages. They bring her above ground. The sunlight is blinding. She covers her eyes. Hasn't seen daylight in so long she's forgotten what it feels like. A cart is waiting. They load her into it. As they ride through Persepolis, she sees the city. Changed. New buildings. Different guards. The empire continuing as if nothing happened. As if her father never ruled. As if her husband never died. As if she never existed. They reach a small villa. Stone walls. A garden. Guards at the gate, but not inside. Statira is waiting. Older now. Hair gray. Face lined. But alive. Mother and daughter stare at each other. Then Statira crosses the courtyard and pulls Amestris into her arms. They hold each other and weep. For lost years. For stolen childhoods. For daughters and husbands and sons scattered across an empire that grinds everything beneath its wheels. Artazostre, Amestris whispers. Alive, married to a nobleman in Media, she has 3 children now. Ariomandes. Statira hesitates. I don't know. The soldiers never found him, which means either he died in the forest or he's alive somewhere, under a different name. Safe. Statira nods. Safe. They sit in the garden, eat fruit, drink wine, pretend for a moment that they're just a mother and daughter sharing a meal. Xerxes let me live, Amestris says. Why? Because killing you makes you a martyr. Imprisoning you makes you forgotten. Statira picks at grapes. This way, you're just a sad woman in a villa. No threat, no story, just silence. Amestris looks at the walls around the garden, high, guarded. Still a prison, she says. Yes, Statira agrees, but one with sunlight. They live there together, mother and daughter, for 7 more years. They garden, they weave. They tell each other stories about the daughters who got away, about Artazostra's children, about the empire slowly forgetting what Xerxes did. And sometimes late at night, Amestris pulls out the memory of Ariomandes' face, the way he looked at her before he ran, the bronze pendant she pressed into his palm. She wonders if he remembers her. She wonders if he's happy. She wonders if not knowing is better than knowing he suffered. On her deathbed, 33 years old, but looking 60, Amestris calls for Statira. If he lived, Amestris whispers, if Ariomandes lived, and he ever comes looking, tell him I loved him. Tell him his father was a hero. Tell him we didn't abandon him. We saved him. Statira grips her hand. I will. And tell him the pendant was from his father's mother, the only piece of his real family he'll ever have. I will. Amestris closes her eyes. Do you think the gods are real, mother? I don't know. Because if they are, they're not worth worshipping. Not if they let men like father exist. Statira has no answer for that. Amestris dies on a spring morning, quietly. No drama, no final curse. Just a woman who suffered and fought and lost and died anyway. They bury her in the villa garden. No monument, no inscription, just dirt and silence. The empire never records her death. History forgets her name within a generation. But in a village north of the Caspian Sea, a young man named Darius, who is really Ariomandes but doesn't remember, holds a bronze pendant and dreams of a woman's voice telling him to run. He doesn't know why the pendant matters. He just knows it does. And every night he whispers a prayer to parents he can't remember, thanking them for whatever they did to keep him alive. Because some heroes don't get songs, they just get forgotten graves and children who survive. 23 years after Amestris dies in an unmarked grave, a merchant caravan arrives in the village where Ariomandes, now calling himself Darius, has lived his entire remembered life. He's 27. a blacksmith, strong hands scarred from hammer and forge. He's married to a local girl named Persia. They have a daughter, 2 years old. Dark eyes like his mother's, though he doesn't know that. The caravan brings goods from Persepolis, silk, spices, wine, and stories. Darius is shoeing a horse when he overhears two merchants talking. Did you hear the king's commissioning a new history? Official record of the Achaemenid dynasty. About time. Too many rumors. Too many lies about the old kings. Xerxes especially. They say he was a monster who defiled his own daughters, but the priests claim it's Greek propaganda. Darius's hands stop moving. The name hits him like a fist. Xerxes. He knows that name. Doesn't know why, but it triggers something. A memory just out of reach. That night he dreams. A woman's face, crying, pushing him into darkness. A man's voice. Run, don't look back. He wakes gasping. Persia touches his shoulder. Another nightmare. He nods. Doesn't tell her that the nightmares are getting worse, more vivid, more insistent. The next morning he finds Roxana, the old woman who raised him, sitting by the fire. Grandmother, he says, tell me again how you found me. She's told this story 100 times. Orphaned by bandits. Alone in the woods. But this time her eyes shift, just slightly. Why do you ask? Because I need to know the truth. She's silent for a long time. Then, some truths are better left buried. Not this one. Roxana sighs, sets down her weaving. You came to me clutching a bronze pendant. You were 4 years old. You said your name was Darius. When I asked about your parents, you screamed, nightmares every night for a year. So I stopped asking. What else? You spoke Persian, but also Greek and Aramaic. No peasant child speaks 3 languages. She looks at him. I always suspected you were someone's son. Someone important. Someone running. Darius pulls the pendant from beneath his shirt. He's worn it every day for 23 years, never taken it off. What does it mean? Roxana examines it. It's old. Bronze. Achaemenid craftsmanship. Worth more than this entire village. She hands it back. Whoever gave you this loved you enough to give you their most precious thing. Then why can't I remember them? Because you were a child, and trauma erases what it can't bear. Darius stares at the pendant. A simple design. 2 lions facing each other. The royal symbol of Persia. I need to know who I am. Roxana grips his hand. You're Darius, my grandson. A good man, a good husband, a good father. Isn't that enough? No, he says quietly, because every night I dream of running, and I need to know what I was running from. 3 weeks later, he leaves for Persepolis. Persia begs him not to go. What if you don't like what you find? Then at least I'll know. He kisses his daughter, tells her he'll return, prays it's not a lie. The journey takes 12 days. Darius travels with a merchant caravan for safety. They enter Persepolis through the eastern gate. The city is massive. Columns that pierce the sky. Palaces that glitter with gold. 50,000 people moving through streets like blood through veins. Darius stands at the gate and feels something stir. Not quite memory. More like recognition. He's been here before. He finds lodging in a cheap inn. Spends his first day wandering, looking for anything that might trigger memory. The palace. The fire temple. The royal quarters. Nothing. On the 3rd day, he asks a street vendor about royal history. Do you know anything about King Xerxes' daughters? The vendor spits. Why do you want to know about that? Just curious. Curiosity about the royal family gets you killed. The vendor leans closer. But if you want real history, not the official propaganda, go to the Street of Scribes. Ask for Mithridates the Elder. He remembers things the court wants forgotten. Darius finds the Street of Scribes that afternoon, narrow, dusty, filled with old men copying scrolls for merchants and nobles. Mithridates is 70, blind in one eye, ink-stained fingers. I'm looking for information about Xerxes' daughters, Darius says. Mithridates studies him. Who's asking? A blacksmith from the north. Blacksmiths don't care about royal history. He sets down his quill. What's your real question? Darius pulls out the pendant. I'm trying to find out who gave me this. Mithridates takes it, examines it closely. His expression changes. Where did you get this? My mother gave it to me, I think. I don't remember clearly. Your mother? Mithridates' voice is strange. What's your name? Darius. Your real name? Darius hesitates. I don't know. I was 4 when I was found. I've been Darius ever since. Mithridates stands, walks to a locked chest in the corner, opens it, pulls out a scroll. 40 years ago, I was commissioned to copy the royal genealogies. Every prince, every princess, every child of the Achaemenid line. He unfurls the scroll. Most of it is public record, but some names were stricken, erased, ordered forgotten by King Artaxerxes. He points to a section. Names crossed out in black ink. Amestris the Younger, daughter of Xerxes and Statira, married to General Artabanus, one son, Ariomandus. Darius stares at the name. Ariomandus. Something breaks open in his mind. Not complete memory, just fragments. A woman braiding his hair. A man teaching him to hold a wooden sword, running through darkness. The smell of smoke and blood. Ariomandus, he whispers. Mithridates nods slowly. The boy was declared dead, but the body was never found. Artaxerxes sent soldiers to every village, searched for years, eventually gave up. He looks at Darius. You're the right age, the right coloring, and that pendant, it belonged to Artabanus's mother. She gave it to him when he became a soldier. He would have given it to his wife, who would have given it to her son. Darius sits down, legs weak. My mother Amestris, what happened to her? Imprisoned for 4 years, then house arrest until her death. She was 33. Mithridates' voice softens. They say she died quietly. No monument. The empire wanted her forgotten. And my father Artabanus, killed by bounty hunters, but not before he assassinated King Xerxes, your grandfather. Mithridates pauses. Did you know that part? Darius shakes his head. Your grandfather raped your mother when she was 13. That's who you are, boy. The son of a victim and a hero, grandson of a monster and a king. The living proof that the Achaemenid dynasty was built on blood and suffering. The words settle like stones. Darius stands. Where is she buried? A villa outside the city, Eastern Hills. But there's no marker. Just a garden. Take me there. They travel at dawn. Mithridates knows the way. The villa is abandoned now. Walls crumbling. Garden overgrown. Darius walks through waist-high grass. Searching. Mithridates points. There, beneath the pomegranate tree. Darius kneels. No stone, no name, just earth and roots and forgotten prayers. He places his hand on the ground. I'm sorry I don't remember you, he whispers. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry I lived while you suffered. The wind moves through the garden. Somewhere a bird sings. But I'm here now, and I'll make sure you're not forgotten. He stays there for an hour, then returns to the city. Darius goes to the palace, demands an audience with the royal scribes. They laugh at him, a blacksmith requesting access to royal records. But he's persistent, returns every day for a week. Finally, a junior scribe takes pity. What do you want? I want my mother's name restored. Amestris, daughter of Xerxes. She was erased from history. I want her remembered. The scribe looks uncomfortable. That's not possible. The king ordered, I don't care what the king ordered. She was a victim. She deserves to be remembered. If I do this, I lose my position, maybe my life. Darius pulls out a small bag of silver, everything he saved for 2 years. Then let me pay for your courage. The scribe stares at the silver, at Darius, at the desperation in his eyes. I can't restore her officially, but I can add a notation, a footnote, something small that future historians might find. That's enough. The scribe takes the silver, writes in the margin of the royal genealogy, Amestris, the younger daughter of Xerxes, mother of Ariomandes, died in exile 445 BCE, victim of her father's crimes. 32 words, a footnote in a massive scroll, but it's something. Thank you, Darius says. He returns to the villa one last time, brings a stonemason, pays him to carve a simple marker. The stone reads, Amestris, daughter, mother, survived. He plants it beneath the pomegranate tree. Then he goes home. Darius returns to his village, to Persia, to his daughter. He doesn't tell them everything, just enough. I found my mother's grave. I made sure she's remembered. Persia holds him that night while he cries. 23 years of buried grief finally surfacing. What will you do now? She asks. Live, raise our daughter. Teach her that her grandmother was brave, that her grandfather fought a monster, that she comes from a line of survivors. Will you tell her about Xerxes? Yes, because if we forget what monsters look like, we start calling them kings again. Years pass. Darius lives quietly, works his forge, raises 3 children, tells them stories about a general who killed a king to save his daughter, about a mother who ran into darkness so her son could live, about an empire that tried to erase inconvenient truths, but failed because one person refused to forget. He dies at 62, surrounded by grandchildren. His last words are, remember Amestris, remember Artabanus, remember that speaking truth is more important than serving power. His children keep the pendant, pass it down through generations. And in 440 CE, 800 years later, a Greek historian named Ctesias of Cnidus interviews Persian elders, collects oral histories, writes about the Achaemenid dynasty. In his text, buried in a chapter about Xerxes, he writes, it is said that this king took his own daughters to his bed, an act so vile that even his own guard rose against him. One general Artabanus killed the king in righteous fury. The daughters were silenced, but their story persisted in whispers. Ctesias's history is dismissed by later scholars as sensational, unreliable, but it survives. And in 1906, archaeologists excavating Persepolis find something strange. A bronze pendant, 2 lions facing each other, Achaemenid craftsmanship, buried beneath the ruins of an ancient villa, next to the skeleton of a young woman. No inscription, no name, just bones and bronze and silence. The archaeologists catalog it, send it to a museum in Tehran, and there it sits, behind glass, unknown, unremarkable. But if you look closely, if you hold it up to the light just right, you can see worn edges, as if someone held it, every day, for years, as if it was loved. Here's what we know from historical records. Xerxes ruled Persia from 486 to 465 BCE. Herodotus documents his invasion of Greece, his defeat at Salamis, his retreat to Persepolis. Ctesias writes that Xerxes engaged in incestuous relationships with his daughters. Mainstream historians debate the accuracy. Some call it Greek propaganda. Others point to similar practices in Egyptian and Ptolemaic dynasties. Artabanus, captain of the guard, assassinated Xerxes in his bedchamber. This is confirmed in multiple sources. His motivations remain unclear. Some claim political ambition, others whisper personal revenge. Artaxerxes I succeeded his father, ruled for 40 years, commissioned histories that erased inconvenient details. The daughters of Xerxes, Amestris, Artaxerxes, Amatis, appear in genealogies, but their stories are fragments, whispers, margins. What happened to them is largely lost to history, but absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Sometimes silence speaks louder than chronicles. So here's what this story really is. It's a reminder that empires are built on bodies, that power structures normalize atrocity, that what we call tradition is often just trauma repeated until it becomes ritual. It's a reminder that every monument has a cost, every palace has a foundation of suffering, every king has victims whose names we'll never know. But it's also a reminder that resistance matters, that speaking truth matters, that even when you lose, even when you die in obscurity, the act of defiance echoes. Artabanus killed Xerxes knowing he'd be hunted, knowing his family would suffer, knowing history might forget him. He did it anyway. Amestris spoke truth in a throne room knowing it would cost her freedom, knowing she'd rot in darkness, knowing she'd die forgotten. She did it anyway. Ariomandes searched for his mother's grave knowing the empire wanted her erased, knowing it was dangerous, knowing it might cost him everything. He did it anyway. Because some things matter more than survival. Some truths demand to be spoken even when no one wants to hear them. Some names deserve to be remembered even when empires try to erase them. Today you can visit Persepolis. Walk through the ruins, touch the columns, stand where Xerxes stood, where Amestris was summoned, where Artabanus drove a blade through a king's throat. The stones remember nothing, but we can. We can remember Amestris, 13 years old, trembling, betrayed by the man who should have protected her most. We can remember Artabanus, good man, broken man, who chose honor over obedience. We can remember every daughter, every mother, every voice that was silenced so empires could pretend they were divine. Because that's how we prevent history from repeating, not by forgetting the horror, but by remembering it so clearly that we recognize the warning signs when they appear again, when power calls itself divine, when systems justify atrocity, when silence becomes complicity. That's when we remember what happened in Persepolis, and we refuse to look away. The bronze pendant sits in a museum in Tehran. Case number 1906 P247. No placard, no explanation, just an artifact. But if you ask the right curator, they'll tell you about the villa where it was found, about the skeleton, about the whispered stories of Xerxes' daughters. And if you listen carefully, you can almost hear them. The voices of women who suffered in silence, the voices of men who died fighting monsters, the voices of children who ran through darkness and survived to tell the story. They're still speaking, if we choose to listen. So here's what I'm asking you to do. If you believe their names deserve to be remembered, share the story. If you believe that power without accountability is tyranny, share this story. If you believe that some truths are too important to bury, share this story. Write a name in the comments. Amestris, Artabanus, Ariomandes, any voice that was silenced by power. Let the algorithm know that forgotten people matter. Let history know that we're paying attention. Because the opposite of erasure isn't remembrance, it's witness. And every person who hears this story becomes a witness. Every share is an act of defiance against empires that demand silence. Every comment is a small stone placed on an unmarked grave saying, "You mattered. You were here. We remember." That's how we honor the dead, not with monuments, but by refusing to forget them. Somewhere in a village that no longer exists in a time beyond memory, a 4-year-old boy runs through darkness, clutching a bronze pendant. His mother's voice echoes behind him, "Don't look back." But we're looking back. For him, for her, for all of them. Because the only way to prevent monsters from rising again is to remember what they looked like the first time. And the only way to honor victims is to speak their names until silence becomes impossible. So speak them, remember them, and make sure that 2,000 years from now, when archaeologists dig through the ruins of our civilization, they find evidence that we chose witness over obedience, that we chose truth over comfort, that we chose to remember the forgotten. because that's what separates us from the empires we condemn. Not that we judge them, but that we learn from them.